The Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey everybody, welcome to the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit. It is time once again for the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I am Craig Fahle. My special guest this week, Nancy Derringer, who is here all the time in the coveted bimbo chair.
The
we
bimbo
appreciate
chair.
It. Again, her title, not mine. Not mine. Actually, that's probably Roger Ailes' title, I think.
It is.
Maybe.
Well, it's always the woman sits so that you can see her legs. But since I don't have anything impressive in the leg department, it's kind of disappointing.
Allan Lengel back again with us.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Of course, the editor here at Deadline Detroit and attorney Todd Perkins is joining us for the first time. Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me. Allan's been telling me about it, and I actually just studied up on some information to be able to sound smart.
Well, I'm sure you'll do fine. You are the principal at the Perkins Law Group here in downtown Detroit. In fact, here in the building. So we basically have just reverted to grabbing people out of the lobby and bringing them up here for the show.
The seventh floor is where it's at, man.
But we are appreciative that you are here, sir, and excited to have you here today. And obviously, the rules here are simple. We basically talk about the big stories of the week and try to have fun with it and make some sense out of the things that are going on. Although it is increasingly difficult these days to make any sense out of the policies coming out of Washington, D.C.
Policies?
Some of the strange things.
Policies coming out of Washington? I thought it was more just like
decisions.
Like,
what do we call
snakes escaping from from a plane, or the Pandora's box full of demons or whatever it is. I don't see a lot of policies, but go ahead.
Well, that's true because there are not going to be a lot of policies as long as this impeachment stuff is going on.
No.
Let's be honest. And the story about this stuff in the Ukraine is getting weirder and weirder by the day. The one thing that I have learned from reading and listening to all sorts of people this week is that the place is a cesspool. There's just not a lot of good
which place,
stuff.
Washington or the Ukraine?
Ukraine. Everybody who goes over there in some capacity comes out tainted in some way, whether it's Hunter Biden, whether it is these two guys that were trying to flee the country yesterday that were friends with Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani himself. Notice that the Trump administration has now brought back who was it? Trey Gowdy.
Oh, Trey
to
Gowdy.
handle some of the defense stuff on the media side.
Zippy the Pinhead.
Because apparently it might not be a good idea for Rudy Giuliani to say much more. And Todd, I'm going to ask you this question. As an attorney, what advice would you give Rudy Giuliani right about now?
I mean, you earned your retainer. Just right what you just said right now. Nothing. But I don't think that Giuliani can control himself. He's a megalomaniac. These people love the camera. They will do and say things that I'm sure attorneys will grind their teeth and going back into their rooms, the strategy rooms, and figuring out how do we fix this. But in the area of social media and the voice print or face print that you put on statements that you make, it's irreversible. But I just don't say anything right now. You've got to take and bite your tongue, hold that. That knee-jerk reaction, even when somebody accuses you of something you didn't do, we've all been taught, restrain yourself, get some advice, but most importantly, let's let the dust settle and see what's there. But I don't think, that would be the rational approach to what happens. But as you all have said, what's going on with the snakes coming out of Washington, nothing is, it's supposed to, a trader told me, he trades on Wall Street, and he's talking about the economic conditions. And the fact that the market is going up is something that they've never seen with all the other conditions that are in the market. It's almost like it's snowing in July in Florida.
Yeah.
And, they just can't make sense
analogy.
of it. Yeah, he says he just can't, and everyone's really scared because, hey, we'll take our profits and and as long as, I was just talking to the guy in the store downstairs, Sam. I was talking to Sam, and Sam is talking about Trump and all these other things and how bad it is. I said, but
not a Trump fan, though.
No, he's not a Trump fan. Go ahead.
The reality is he can get reelected if the economy's doing well.
Well,
that's what people want.
I know.
That's what drives us.
It's possible.
We hope.
But I don't. This might. I mean, everything in the Trump atmosphere is a unicorn. I mean, we've never been in this situation before. We hear this over and over. It's like the checks and balances are not working because nobody ever envisioned a president as corrupt as this one, right? And so, he can do all kinds of stuff. I think yesterday I was reading my Axios newsletter in the morning because apparently I like to get out of bed in a bad mood. And they were saying, what if he is impeached? What if he does go to a Senate trial? What if he's acquitted, and then what if he's reelected?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about flying blind.
What if we go crazy?
Yeah.
I want to say that
Canada's a short swim. Really, you wait until August, boom.
Yeah, but that election's going to be weird over there too.
Yeah.
the indictment of the arrest of those two fellas, the Giuliani minion there, I find that heartening because at least you see that the justice system is still working, that Trump is not totally controlling it, that William Barr is not totally interfering with the justice process. I mean, one of the questions is, it's almost similar to like, why is Rudy Giuliani not named in that indictment? And I think, and Todd can maybe join in here, but I found covering federal government over the many years is that the bar is higher for indicting attorneys than other people. And maybe you can.
I would agree with that. I would agree that there's some sense of wanting to be certain when we the reason why it's easier to indict Manafort versus people wanted to indict Trump. And they talked about all those things and the constitutional quagmire that would create in doing so. But at the end of the day, there was when Trump was elected, is some socioeconomic theorists who indicated that the United States is like a huge ship. It's much to what you're saying that it's heartening that these people are arrested, but it's a huge ship. And no matter whether we have Trump and we have Barr, we at least have people complain about it, but we have enough red tape that they can't get through the whole thing. They can't change the course of this ship. So but what I think, and what's the worst thing that we had and the United States has, before Trump was elected, from a brand perspective, as a businessman, I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a businessman. But our brand was number one in the world. The United States brand. 1 year after he was in office, we were number 6.
We're Trump steaks, basically. Yes. Yeah, at this point. And you know what? I have to quibble with that because I heard a good friend of mine made that exact same point that you just did, using the exact same metaphor, that it's that the United States of America is an aircraft carrier. You can't turn it around in a mile or even 2 miles, but you can. He's turning the ship. I mean, you look at some of the policy that is being rammed through. A few weeks ago we were talking about like taking some of the muscle out of the Endangered Species Act. I'm like, what is he going to do? Like roast a bald eagle?
He's not turning around the ship. He's sinking the ship.
Well,
what he's doing though. You have to read the secondary stories. It's just like he opened up so much land in California to be used for private purposes.
Right.
Those are the things that are happening. He's attacking our natural resources.
Exactly. So he's turning the ship.
No, he is. No. Yeah. I said that was a year. That was a year after he got elected.
Oh, okay.
Now 3 years later or 4 years later, we're in trouble now.
Well, interestingly enough, though, I mean, for all the complaints and concern that people have that this guy can act with impunity and not be punished by these things, I mean, the courts are doing their job. A 2-1 vote this morning in the U.S. Court of Appeals said that Congress is going to get access to 8 years of President Trump's business records. Now, that is going to be fodder for a lot of stuff, and they'll get this. Now, granted, we'll see whether or not the Supreme Court, if this gets elevated above the appeals court. They may decide to take it up. They may not, and I have a feeling there will be some sort of emergency motion that they take it up quickly. Sure. But this is an opportunity for the Supreme Court to flex its muscle and say, look, you know what? The oversight of the executive office is the role of Congress, and they could send a very strong message about what is and is not acceptable behavior from the administration.
How is the Supreme Court leaning these days, Craig?
Well, here's one thing about that.
Look, but the rule of law is something they have to take seriously, and the Constitution spells out who has responsibility.
You're talking about the Constitution. You're talking about rationale, logic, and all the things that should be in this world, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
But here's the good part about it.
I think John Roberts actually still believes in
that. I was going to say that.
I think so.
But the good part about it is you have Gorsuch and Kavanaugh who should have to recuse themselves. Because I would think, well, but
Yeah.
we're talking about reasonable.
Yeah, I know. We're reasonable people. Yeah, we're in.
But we don't see that very often.
And
I mean, I
when
think
you
the
say
last time
recuse
Elena
himself-
Kagan recused herself from a case a couple of years ago, but I don't think it was for the. I mean,
She was probably the Solicitor General or something, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think it was
yeah.
a case that actually had originated.
Yeah,
But
but
just-
why would you say that they would have to?
Well, he was the one who appointed them.
but
yeah, but
that would
that's-
invalidate.
I think
mean,
that might not.
No, I think I know that there have been decisions, but this is uniquely him.
since it is connected directly to the person.
to the president, not only as the president from the office of the president, but to Donald Trump personally before he was president.
Yeah.
So that would be my argument that he should, or those two should, because I think, like you said, Craig, there are justices on there who I don't necessarily agree with, but who I do believe they have some belief that the Constitution still exists. Because,
Right.
even Kavanaugh, he came out with a recent opinion that shocked a lot of people. I just think that I have my own beliefs as to what they're trying to do with the Supreme Court. But these individuals like John Roberts, he's a conservative, but he's a person that believes in the law.
Right.
You've seen how he ruled with what do they call Obamacare?
Right.
And
he's
the
Chief
independence
Justice.
Yeah.
and the independence of the court.
Yes.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
I know one thing, that nobody on that court is comfortable with people thinking that they're a puppet of any administration.
Understood.
And
Do you
so,
think, or Justice Rapey McBeer might think that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people are so partisan
Wow.
on that court that you're never. I mean, like Sam Alito,
Strip search Sammy?
Gorsuch,
Gorsuch.
Clarence Thomas.
Oh, Clarence.
Those.
He's lost now that
His buddy
died.
Yeah,
There was only maybe one or two opinions that he didn't vary from him.
Yeah.
Scalia.
They watched. Yeah, they marched in lockstep. Anyway, go
well,
ahead.
okay. So, but the other strange thing that happened this week was it seems like a unilateral decision by the president to withdraw U.S. Special Forces
Oh, my
from
God.
Syria, where the Kurds were helping us fight ISIS. In fact, we were basically training those troops to fight ISIS, which they
Right.
did successfully. This is not the first time the Kurds have been abandoned. I mean,
Right.
you may recall when we withdrew troops from Iraq, we sort of left them out in the cold there, too, during the Obama administration. Again, we're doing it again to them, and Turkey did not waste any time.
That's horrific.
And-
what's happened there?
But this is something like even the Republicans are like, well, this is not what we expected to have happen. And you listen to the rationale that the president gave. Well, they didn't help us in Normandy.
Oh my God!
Well, no,
I know.
but
I
the
know.
thing is, but then they found out, they did some research that there were Kurds who fought in World War II on the Allied side.
Right.
So yes, they did.
You have to go back to the War of 1812.
Well, exactly. Where were they in the French and Indian War? They weren't helping us there.
And
But
excuse me, but what members of the Trump family have fought in any war ever? I mean, I don't think you could get a Trump to go to the seizing of Grenada. That would have been, that was a chance to work on your tan, which he's obviously a big fan.
But
of.
everybody's sort of puzzled by his decision here and why this was done as swiftly
Or maybe
as quickly
not.
as it was.
Or maybe not. I mean, his alliance with Russia and Turkey. It's interesting. A good source of mine had told me, this is probably a year and a half ago now, that Turkey had a fear of ISIS, and so they made deals with ISIS so that ISIS could go through Turkey to get into Europe. That Turkey was tipping off ISIS when there were alliances going into Iraq to attack certain cities where there'd be 500 ISIS soldiers there. The ISIS soldiers would leave before the attacks and stuff like that. So it's here. It is. Turkey is going in to Syria, and the Kurds have been imprisoning the ISIS people who are going to now go free. It's all disturbing.
What the president said about that the other day, he said, that's okay, they're going to go to Europe. That's where they want to go.
Yeah, right.
The Europeans.
Well, they
love us
want a
right now.
vacation in Europe before they get back to their terrorist ways.
We shall see. But anyway, lots of big stuff happening today, as a matter of fact. You have the former ambassador to Ukraine, Voyanovich, who is testifying right now, as a matter of fact. Then you've got now Gordon Sondland, who is the ambassador to the EU that had injected himself into the Ukraine stuff, who is going to testify under subpoena next week. So we'll be watching that pretty closely. Not to
What's
mention,
he going to do? What do you think he's going to do?
I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, is he going to try to stand up for the president? He may, but
I kind of think he might.
But he's got some splaining to do.
Yeah, he has a lot of splaining to do.
But everyone is willing. It's crazy to me how willing people are to step and test their armor or their metal for the purposes of showing their loyalty to. I mean, he's a gangster. He's a bully. He's a gangster.
Lawless.
He's lawless. I mean, well, no, he's not lawless. It's just his rules, and he makes them up as he goes along.
Right.
And so,
and no matter how much you kowtow to him, he will end up humiliating you.
No question about it.
I mean, that's the way he
question about
rolls. He's a classic bully. It's like if you stand up to him, he just attacks harder. But if you acquiesce, then he loses all respect.
There was on Yom Kippur services, there was a rabbi speaking, and he was talking about bullying, and the idea of bullying is to try to make sure that the power level is always uneven, and that's what he has done successfully over time. I was going to say, if I could throw in,
sure.
George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's husband, was on the Preet Bharara podcast. Pete Bharara being the former U.S. attorney, and he was saying, it was so funny, he was saying, I don't understand it, how these people could work for this guy and why they don't resign. It's like wink, wink.
I know.
It's crazy. I mean, that's got to be a fascinating marriage right there.
Well, you know what? I'm tiring of this fascinating marriage personally, because I'm beginning to think that this is all just a big shtick. That, that they're going to...
There's books.
Oh, no, I agree. I think there's
ways.
books. I think it's a show that comes after this. I think it's a mini-series.
Well,
it's like
Netflix series.
Mary Madeline and
John
Snakehead.
Bolton just
What's
announced that his book was going to be published soon. John Bolton is going to have a tell-all, apparently. We'll see what that is. But
Mary and Snakehead are like, they're aging into their retirement years. What's the guy? Yeah, the guy that worked for Clinton. I forget his name. Anyway.
So we need James Carville.
Carville. Yeah, we need a new.
The Cajun.
The Raging Cajun.
You know who I have a problem with them? I have a real problem with Republicans, and my problem with Republicans is not that I am a Democrat 99% of the time, but the real Republicans have fallen and lost their way as far as what they truly believe in. You know, the Mitch McConnells and those other
Lindsey
individuals.
Graham.
And I'm so disappointed in Collins.
I'm
Senator Collins. I'm so disappointed. I thought that she would be the moderate type
Susan Collins of Maine? Are you
I just
talking
thought
about her?
You know, she's a very powerful piece on the chessboard. If she decided that
she wrings her hands, she's like Jeff Sass. She wrings her hands, she clutches her pearls, and then she votes with her for the party over the country.
I'm not disappointed in any of those people because my expectations have always been so
well, you're
low.
right, though. I mean, I think there's a longer view to take. Excuse me, I'm just going to
That's all right. That's fine.
Which is that this could easily be the end of the Republican Party as we know it, because essentially they have all abandoned. You keep saying their principles. It's like, what principles? Their principle at this point now is party over everything. They don't care.
I don't believe that.
Keep in mind, though. Keep in mind, we just had the highest annual deficit. $1 trillion.
Oh yeah, remember that when they were all up in arms about the deficit? Yeah.
So anyway, but there's going to be a lot coming out. This is all going to unfold. Yes. Last question on this issue. Do you think it would be a good idea for the Democrats to hold a vote on opening a formal impeachment inquiry? This is something that the Trump administration is suggesting makes this whole thing illegitimate, and why they're saying they're not going to send people to testify. Are they playing into their hands if they do that?
I don't understand it.
So what the Republicans are arguing is that this whole thing that Pelosi is doing right now is illegitimate if there's not an official vote with the full House on whether or not to open an impeachment inquiry. Now, granted, the House can do this any way it wants to, so there's not really anything there, but should they call the bluff and have the vote?
Well, see, here's my position.
Not for the impeachment, but just to open the official investigation inquiry.
And yeah, he's going to want to use Robert's Rules of Order in there and all these other rules that are in place when he's abandoned the rules completely.
Right.
So, you know, one thing is I wouldn't be bullied by him. And, you know, if he doesn't want to participate or if he does want to participate, it's all about keeping the pedal to the metal against him. If you're willing to do it. You know, at first I was not I really like Nancy Pelosi. I think, you know, at 79 years old, she's something else, you know. And I agree with her, but I've kind of come over to the new wave of younger people who are in the sort of the freshman representatives who are in there, and it's all about just ramping it up. They believe in that mentality, almost like Trump, as far as just bringing it to them, smash mouth football. And, you know, do what you were going to do. What I wouldn't do is I would not change what I was going to do because of what this guy says. You know what I'm saying? You know, so I had to pull it back.
I have to say the one thing with Nancy Pelosi and you know, when we talk about the squad and all that stuff, I mean, I think it's great that there's that ball of energy. But I think there's a certain maturity. And Washington is a complicated place. And if you come in and just think you are, talk about ships, you're going to turn the ship around just because you're louder than the person next to you. That's not how Washington works. And I think there is a process to getting there. I would, Nancy Pelosi was a little overly cautious, I think. But, to answer your question is, in my understanding is if they announce a formal hearing, then the White House, the Republicans have subpoena power.
Yeah.
And I think the Democrats should just
so basically
go.
Joe Biden would be spending the next
right.
6 months sitting in front of congressional
I think
committees.
the Democrats should figure out the most expeditious way, and if it means that officially opening it is going to slow that down, I say no. There's no reason. They're having a hearing right now. They're doing an investigation.
I'd wait.
There's nothing to impede them.
And
from
I'd wait to
doing
see
that.
if they get a couple of victories in the courts about, hey, the subpoena's power is genuine. You better show up or else you're going to be in contempt.
Right.
And if somebody decides not to show up or blow it off, throw them in jail for contempt.
Right.
Well,
That will do
here's
it.
the thing. What they have is an argument, though. Because he's put something out there that can be attenuated to being or aligned with being a legal question, he's at least made some palpable legal argument that could be put at the foot of the Congress and say, listen, I didn't do it because I believed, and there was no inquiry as to whether my belief was accurate or not. So he's at least established that. Now, say what you want about he is a very cagey guy, and he's getting advice, whether it's his own advice. It does throw something out there that makes people have to say, even Allan, as smart as Allan is, Allan believes that, hey, let's get it done right and different things like that. So to that extent, yeah. I'm just still I'm just going to fight him on my own terms, you know what I'm saying? And just let's go. And if we're wrong, and I'll threaten and I'll put you and send you to jail until you testify. And you go to the Court of Appeals or to the district court and find that judge. And we'll walk it through the courthouse and we'll do the same things that you do and attack it legally. But...
All right. So, I should remind folks, this is the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Nancy Derringer is here. Of course, Allan Lengel, and our special guest today, Todd Perkins, local attorney with the Perkins Law Group here in the city of Detroit.
This is awesome.
Are you having fun?
This
Are
is
you having
awesome.
fun?
Oh, my
well,
God.
that's
You can
great.
become
I
a
appreciate
regular
that
then.
very much.
Awesome.
And so... so there we have a comment that just came in from a person I've known for a long time who just says MAGA. There you go. So I appreciate the fact you're watching, Tom. I guarantee you that we do not agree on just about anything, but I appreciate the fact that you are checking us out right now.
Okay.
Right.
That's nice.
Now, speaking of MAGA, I know we have talked about nothing but him this entire...
Yeah, which I was about to move on.
And
that was the reason for
you
the
can move on.
transition.
Okay, it's fine. We'll leave the gathering of the Magalos last night in Minneapolis for another time.
Well, because there's going to be another one next week.
I know.
There's always a
There's
rally.
always another one.
And so it's kind of funny. And if you want to watch them, they're always on Fox News.
Yes, exactly.
So you can watch that.
Okay, so let's move
All right,
on.
Let's move on. The curious story here in the city of Detroit this week, and last week, frankly, was who tore down the house owned by State Rep Sherry Gay Dagnogo. Right. And, of course, we found out who tore it down. It was a company called Gibson Construction. What we also learned this week is that she had actually requested bids for the price of demolishing this house. It was a very strange press conference the other day, though, with Chief Craig, who said, look, had she told us that she had submitted these requests for demolition costs, we could have figured this out in 2 days. Instead, she didn't. She's saying, I did give them all the information.
Right, and Charlie
LaDuff has that up on Deadline Detroit today. But the whole thing is really, really strange because she started out saying, well, I was going to rehab this house and give it away to this poor family. And in reality, she was submitting bids for the demolition of the house. It was fire damaged. It did have some problems. And like I said, as somebody who worked in the land bank and knows about these old houses, sometimes people bite off more than they can chew, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that and saying, maybe I got a better option here than trying to spend $60,000 to rehab a house that I might be able to get $20,000 out of. It doesn't always make economic sense. But the way this whole thing has gone down has been really strange.
It's been very strange.
So what's the advantage to her knocking? What does it cost to knock down a house?
Well, apparently the bid she got on it was about $10,000, and for a house that size, that's probably in line. But
and so what,
did they take out the
what does
estimate?
she
We don't
do?
know.
So what does she do with that lot? It's her lot, right?
Apparently.
She can grow a lovely garden if she wants to.
If when you buy a house from the land bank, your job is to abate the nuisance that home is, because these are abandoned homes that need a lot of repair, but you either fix it up
Right.
And some people choose to tear them down and do something else with that lot. But that, technically she has abated the nuisance now.
Right. But what if she had decided to abandon it then? She would have saved $10,000, right?
Well, but she apparently never approved the demolition. This company just got a call from somebody, said, well, how much would you charge? And they, oh, that sounds good. And they just took it upon themselves to go do it. Now nobody's getting paid for this. I mean, I guarantee you, Representative Gay Dagnogo is not about to pay $10,000 for a job that she did not sign off on. I wouldn't.
Right.
And this company's in deep trouble now.
Right. And what does it say that no permits were pulled? That you mentioned asbestos. I don't know what vintage that house was.
It looks about a 1940s, 1950s little.
Did those
little
have
house.
asbestos in them?
Yes,
well, I know
did.
commercial buildings did. I didn't know that
floor tiles, ceiling
right,
tiles,
yeah,
pipe
sure.
wrapped, all kinds of stuff.
That siding. There's all
window
kinds of stuff.
glazing,
Yeah,
siding,
exactly, all that stuff. So
roof.
So if it did
asbestos
have,
used to be in everything.
I know. If it did have asbestos, I think it's probably a fair bet that it was not mitigated in the correct manner.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But I mean, it's just really strange that the police and the state rep have been sort of contentious about this.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, was she as cooperative as she could have been? I don't know. She says that she gave them the information that they could have followed up on. Charlie LaDove said he knew a week ago who the company was, but verification was probably the difficult part, since I think the guy who owned the company hung up on him. Which, you're kind of trying to get that second source.
Right.
You gotta do that.
It
and
wasn't
he probably
gonna be
couldn't
him.
until exactly. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit more to figure out on this one, but it's been getting a lot of attention and people like it.
Yeah.
How about this? Glad to live in Michigan, right? We're about to get into the cold season here.
Yeah.
You look at what's going on in California. As much as I love California, LA is on fire again.
It's
There's
not on fire yet. It's not on fire yet. It's the beginning. I can speak from.
It's wildfire season in California.
It's wildfire
Got a
season,
representative
And the
out
Santa
there.
Anas are strong this year.
my daughter is living there right now, and she was telling me that she's working at a recording studio, and she said they may get some time off because they think Malibu is going to lose its power. Pacific Gas and Electric is
rotating blackouts.
Yeah, is cutting off power in areas where their infrastructure is a little fragile, because they're afraid as the winds are starting, and they're beginning to start now, that it'll pull down lines and start fires.
Well,
so nothing's on fire yet.
Well, no, actually, we have one dead, one injured wildfire that's going through the San Fernando Valley as we speak.
The Saddle Ridge fire. Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. 25 homes destroyed already, and of course the winds are blowing at like 45, 50 miles an hour out there, which does not help, and it is
her text
dry as a
yesterday
bone.
was, the Midwest seems so much safer.
Hey, it gets cold here, everybody, and it gets cloudy for about 5 months at a time, but guess what? We don't have earthquakes for the most part, and we don't have
We have truly
wildfires and mudslides.
biblical weather.
Yeah, so
in
that's
Southern
one of those
California.
things that makes me actually happy to live in Michigan sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
At
the
least when
and the
it's not
cost of living.
January.
You pay for the privilege to have your house taken away by a wildfire out there.
That's true.
Especially Malibu. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that.
Here's an interesting, if I may.
You can interject anytime you want.
I don't want to throw off your agenda, but I was seeing here a friend of mine posted a thing saying it's been reported that Nike ordered Houston Rockets merchandise removed from at least 5 company stores in China.
Wow. Well, I was going to get to the NBA China thing.
Yeah.
This is starting to percolate a little bit,
Yeah.
and the weird thing is, to me, it's interesting that one NBA team saying, "Hey, don't say anything about Hong Kong because it's going to hurt our relationship with China as we're about to have a big game over there." That's the thing that finally gets people off the fence when it comes to China's moral transgressions, of which there are many.
Right.
I mean, this is a country that they now think they've been harvesting Uyghur organs
Right.
for rich people in China to be transplanted.
Prisoners,
Political
probably,
prisoners.
or in all those bodies.
Falun
exhibits.
Gong
What did you
members.
say, Uyghur organs?
Yes, they're basically
They're a
Chinese
Chinese
Muslims, and they're a
minority.
population
okay,
on the western part of China, and they've been put into these re-education camps, as
Right.
have the Falun Gong members. So you've got basically political prisoners, religious prisoners, and concentration camps. And again, organ harvesting. The
Right.
World Health Organization said this is going on.
Right.
So if you've got enough money,
Well-
there's no wait in China. You can get a kidney pretty darn fast. You just don't know where it came from.
It's interesting. The NBA,
But now people are starting to look at it finally.
God bless the NBA. Some of the coaches, including Stan Van Gundy and the Warriors coach and the San Antonio coach, after Trump was elected, they spoke out very strongly and were very critical. And I thought it was great that the NBA has allowed that. And so for the NBA to get all up in arms over a foreign country, their market over there is ridiculous. The NBA should stand for something, and it shouldn't stand for just money.
Well, and the NBA
that stands for a lot of companies, though, in the United States, and a lot of politicians in the U.S.
Well, something. As an NBA agent, I'm gonna really, not.
You're an NBA agent?
Yes, I am.
I did not know this. Fascinating.
He's
Go
the
ahead.
man.
I will let you defer. I want to get your clients in any trouble.
Yeah, we'll, as they try to move into the G League and get their marketing deals off the ground.
It's a new market.
Yes. Yeah,
it's a big market.
It is. It is, and it's I had a client several years ago. He was, you think about it. Look at the Houston Rocket players. What Yao Ming did for Houston Rockets.
Oh yeah.
And he, but for the political circuitous routes that go on in China, he could be president. Of China. Sure. He could, but the 10th player has a multi-million-dollar marketing deal with China products on the Houston Rockets, who's on the bench. So, but I had
So the Chuck Nevitt of the Houston Rockets
yes, everyone. And, this client that I had was with San Antonio. But, sight unseen, was offered a shoe deal. So who we have to thank for a lot of that, though. Not only is NBA and David Stern, I think, did a lot to grow the image of the NBA, but Stephon Marbury. Remember when he left the league?
I was going to say Chairman Mao, but go ahead. No, I heard another
You're too smart for us.
I heard another podcast today because I was wondering about this, and there was another podcast today, which I will remain nameless, that went into the whole history of how China became this big basketball.
Okay.
Well, when
and Chairman Mao loved basketball, and Chinese kids play basketball.
I'll tell you, in Israel, and I was there in 93 and 94, and the Chicago Bulls were huge. And you would go around, you'd see soldiers wearing Chicago Bull hats, and people were staying up because of the time difference. People during the playoffs were watching, staying up 3, 4 in the morning.
To watch Jordan.
Yeah, when Magic Johnson would come it would be front page news. So the NBA, has a market. It's a world international market, and they're always looking. And China is obviously a huge market, but where do we stand?
Right.
I think it's disgraceful if the NBA starts to back down.
Well, especially when the NBA tolerates its players. Ripping Trump a new one every time they turn around.
LeBron James.
Yeah, LeBron is a great case in point. If you're going to say that's okay, but you can't say anything about that, you just look like chicken.
Well, we got to wrap up.
Okay.
So I got to finish with, I always like the good news story. The good news story to wrap up the week on, and this is interesting. And I don't know how you would actually measure this, and I'm trying to figure it out, but apparently we in Michigan have the second highest beer tolerance in America.
Yay.
This is a story you can find on Deadline Detroit if you want to take a
Wisconsin.
look at it. Well, Wisconsin's like
maybe Ohio.
Sausage
maybe
tolerance.
Ohio.
But apparently, according to a survey from alcohol.org, Michigan ranked second when it came to the number of beers a person can drink before they start to feel drunk. On a scale from 2.71 to 4.04, most states begin feeling tipsy after drinking their third. However, those in Michigan said they can drink at least 4 beers, as the study recorded a 4.02 count.
Wow.
Arizona was only slightly higher at 4.04.
Wow. It's probably ASU.
I would have.
That's right.
That.
I would have thought Wisconsin, but that's okay.
Well, anyway.
ASU,
Yeah,
You're right.
But maybe on our 5th beer we can.
Well, I think what I would like then to do is find out, where we rank in the number of people needing liver transplants in Michigan, because I have a feeling there's a direct correlation between these two things.
We can probably get some livers from China.
Probably. That's
Call Yao Ming.
Oh, all right. Well, the good news, the
puts a
Wings
nice
are off to
bow
a
on
good
it.
start. We got a good start to the hockey season. Pistons getting ready to get started here pretty soon, so
Derrick
looking forward to
Rose.
that.
No, they played the other night. They beat Dallas. And they came back, and Derrick Rose looked really good.
Yeah.
Well,
It was
I like
impressive.
the Derrick Rose Kennard connection.
Yeah.
They seem to already be playing well together.
Yep.
And as you think about it, Derrick Rose is a longtime veteran, but he's only 31 years old. Because you forget he came out so early.
Yeah.
And
He's got the moves.
And
He's got
we
the
just want him
moves.
to be healthy.
Yeah.
Well, that's always the challenge.
Yes, it is.
Especially in the NBA. Again, the Wings. Anthony Mantha is on a tear. Heck of a player. already has 6 goals, I believe, this season, something
wow.
like that. So he's in 4 games. So he's looking pretty darn good, including 4 goals in 1 game the other night, which is pretty
When
impressive.
you guys talk like this, I feel
Hey.
like Gary Larson's dog.
There might be
Far
a reason.
Side. Blah, 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 Ginger. Blah, 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 blah.
I like that one.
Yeah,
by the
that was
way.
a good one. Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap it
I
up.
miss those cards. Those are so good.
This has been the week that was on Deadline Detroit. Thanks to our sponsors, Samaritas and Techtown Detroit. We certainly appreciate their support so we can do this goofy stuff every week. Thanks to Allan Lengel for being here. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to Nancy Derringer. And thanks to Todd Perkins for being here today. We'll have you back, sir. I hope you had fun.
I had a blast.
All right.
I mean,
And
it's
Michael.
just.
And
it is,
of course, I
yes.
won't forget Michael Lucido.
Yeah.
Michael Lucido, who engineers this broadcast each and every single time. We appreciate that very much. And thank you for watching this week. We appreciate it. And Allan,
Drive home safely.
there you go. Have a great one, everybody. Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.